Excellent. Well, welcome to week 4.
Here we are.
Here we are. This week we're going to be looking specifically at the payments industry, the industry that processes how we transfer value between people, so that you can understand how Bitcoin fits within the broader payments ecosystem that it's basically inserted itself into. Now, last week you all got to experience using Bitcoin for the first time, or some of you are still finishing. I think Don wants to say a few words about that.
Yeah, I think you guys, you're pretty familiar probably with using credit cards and cash and debit, and now you've had a chance to use probably the premier cryptocurrency, not the first one, but definitely the one that made the most splash in the broader world. And I think you guys, you got a little bit of experience in working with it technically. I think that looking at your transaction on the blockchain was really illuminating for some of you. Just to kind of see exactly how much you could trace and how much you couldn't trace. Looking at, to some degree, the complexity. I mean, there was a certain amount of complexity, but the complexity was limited. You had some ability to understand what was going on. And you could see that there was some change being given, and it took a little bit of time to get that transaction to go through. And in some cases, some of you guys said things like, oh, I sent you back the Bitcoin. And I was like, well, I actually need you to point me to the transaction because you're anonymous. So unless you show me which transaction was yours, it could have been anyone else in the class. And so that would be something that would be really important for a merchant to know. Like, you can pay them money, but unless you're actually there in person or you have some other side channel conversation, they don't know that that money came from you. So anyway, you got to experience that firsthand. I think that was pretty good.
Yeah, cool. And I just wanted to point out something too, just as we prepare for the coming week. There was a nice discussion in the forum about, given how hard that just was, and given all the issues around Bitcoin, someone posted, I don't know why anybody would want to do this. Like, could any merchant, for instance, want to even bother with this? And I pointed out there in the forums that if you take a look at the Coinbase website, they have a whole page that's addressed to merchants. I'm just going to show you my laptop. It's there somewhere. But you go and you look at the Coinbase merchant page, click on the tab, and down below, it ticks off a number of what it sees as the advantages to Bitcoin if you're a small business owner. And what it says is, you can eliminate interchange fees, no fees for the first $1 million of Bitcoin payments that you receive, and after that, it's just 1% to convert Bitcoin to cash. You get paid quickly. You'll receive cash in your bank account in 2 to 3 business days. You can eliminate, they claim, chargebacks and fraud. So a chargeback is where I pay for something with a credit card and then I dispute the transaction. And what happens is the card company spots the money back into my account while it's investigated. That's called a chargeback. Chargebacks are a very important consumer protection feature of the credit and debit card systems, but they're a huge pain in the neck for merchants because a lot of dealing with them is put on the merchant. And then also they say that you can they'll let you issue refunds using the Coinbase API. So what Coinbase is doing here is making a pitch to the merchant and basically saying that Bitcoin with Coinbase has some comparative advantages versus the other means of payment that a merchant might accept. And those means of payment are cash, credit cards, and debit cards primarily. I guess some merchants still accept checks, but probably they're fewer and far between than they used to be. So what we want to do in the coming week is understand where Bitcoin fits in the broader payments landscape. So you're going to be reading about the payments industry. Another thing that came out of the discussion this past week was people making comparisons between Bitcoin and cash. There's a lot of discussion there back and forth about this. It's kind of like cash because it's sort of anonymous. There's various ways where people were talking about how it's not like cash because with cash there's no records except for paper receipts. There's some cash. But one thing that I want to point out here that makes it very similar to cash, and you'll see some discussion of this next week, is that with cash is what we call a push transaction. Because with cash, I've got the cash. I actually don't have any cash. Don, can you illustrate? Don is going to give me cash through the computer. There. He has basically pushed the cash to me. Once it's in my hand, he has no way to get it back unless he like attacks me and beats me up and takes it from me. It's pushed to me. Bitcoin is like that too. Once I send you Bitcoin, that's it. I've pushed it out to you. It's gone. I can't really claw it back. A lot of our other payment systems, like credit and debit, are what we call pull transactions. There's a series of authorizations that go back and forth over the network, and then the money is pulled out of my account and into, say, the merchant's account. It's a really important distinction you're going to be learning about this week. So another thread in the conversation that got kind of philosophical and was pretty interesting to think about was on the question of, given the way that when a Bitcoin comes into your possession, you can trace its entire transaction history, do you have any kind of obligation to do so? Should you know or should you manage its history in a particular way? Does it matter? Given that it's there to see, should you bother seeing it?
One reason why that might matter, actually, is, well, I mean, first of all, there's the ethical concern. If you know that your Bitcoin was just used in a kidnapping or an assassination, and you take that Bitcoin, are you somehow ethically liable? There's sort of just the ethical concern about accepting it. But there's also kind of a pragmatic concern that if there is a consensus in the community that those coins are going to be blacklisted, it's possible, a little bit unlikely based on how the discussions have been going, but technically it's possible for the Bitcoin community to agree that we're not going to accept any transactions downstream of this one particular crime that happened. And it recently, like within the last year, there have been some high-profile thefts of Bitcoin, and people have proposed blacklisting certain streams of Bitcoin. Mostly the people that were stolen from have suggested this, and so it gives you a little bit of pause to think if you have a liability by accepting what the community calls tainted Bitcoin.
So totally fascinating discussion, and I think you're all really raising some great points in the forum. And again, we just want to thank you for taking the forum seriously and really being engaged. There's one other point about the coming week. You're going to be participating in a forum again. You're going to be comparing and contrasting Bitcoin to some of the other payment systems that we use every day. You're also going to be doing an essay assignment. The essay is going to ask you to go out into the world, get up from your computer, go out into the world, and go buy something. Don't buy anything too expensive, unless you want to, but buy it with a non-cash method of payment. And what we want you to do when you're buying something with your non-cash method of payment, we want you to record all the steps involved, all the different pieces of technology involved, and try to figure out the flows of data and money and electricity. You only got 3 credit cards? You have more? All the different flows of data, funds, and electricity that are, don't show us your numbers. Oh, okay. All the flows that are involved in it, and then we want you to write about it. We really want you to dig into the everyday act of payment without cash, so that then you can understand how Bitcoin is similar or different, and then write up an essay about it. One final point, and some of you have already pointed this out to us, and we know, but we do care. It's not that we don't care. There's just something we can do about it. There's a book assigned for this week, and it's not free. You're not going to read the whole book. You're just going to read some parts of it. You're welcome to read the whole book if you want. It's called Payment Systems in the U.S., A Guide to the Payments Professional. The digital version is available on Kindle and in the iTunes store for about $10. We're sorry that it's $10, but that's what it is. But consider it an investment. As we said, or will say in the roadmap for this week, this is a book that is given by payment companies and by banks to new employees who work in the payments division of banks and who also start working for Visa or MasterCard or PayPal or even the iTunes Store, Facebook, Google Wallet, and so forth. This is the Bible for payments industry professionals. And if any of you has any interest in going into a career in that industry, you're going to have to read this book at some point. So, what's that?
Or a startup. There's like a billion mobile money startups.
So if you're going to start a startup, you need to read this book if it's going to be a payment startup. So, so you're welcome when you fork over $10 for that. Anyhow.
Theft over in Bill's house. Is that a
And we
siren?
have appropriately there are sirens going past my home right now, so
Very good.
they're coming.
Okay,
I think that's it. Enjoy the week, and we're looking forward to the discussion.
great. See you online.
Bye.
Bye.